Should you buy Samsung Galaxy S7 in 2018? That video is coming up right now. Let's go. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. And should you buy the Samsung Galaxy S7 in 2018? I got a couple requests to go ahead and make this video right here, as this phone is going into its second year, not even a full 2 years old yet, but it will be very soon. And prices have come down significantly on this smartphone. I want to begin by talking about the body, the build, and the design. So first of all, I could definitely recommend it when it comes to the build quality, just due to the fact that the build quality on this phone right here is basically what Apple did with the iPhone 8. So, you could say, well, Apple had glass before. I really think they just took inspiration from the GS7 series and went ahead and put that on the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, because they had glass before, but then they ditched it. Samsung comes out with glass and boom, they're back with glass. So definitely a very premium construction here. You do have the curved edges along the back, so it definitely wasn't curved on the front. The S7 Edge will give you that. I do plan on bringing some S7 Edge content soon, so you might want to stay around for that. But yeah, you can just see the curve along the back edge, beautiful. On the front, very thin bezels. Although it doesn't have edges, it has very thin bezels on the side and the right, but at the top and the bottom, those are pretty thick. However, at the discounted price, you're still getting a lot of what you get with the S8 here when it comes to the Samsung Galaxy S7. So durability strong, 7000 series aluminum around the sides, Gorilla Glass on front and back. That camera design is pretty flush. Another thing I really liked about the S7, pretty flush camera design, not as flush as the S8, but it's just about there. They were just about there on this device. You still get yourself a headphone jack on this device as well. Unfortunately, no USB-C. That's one bummer of this phone, and you do have a rather not so good speaker, so not a great speaker here. But overall, build quality, body design, still a go here in 2018. So I want to take a quick second to talk about that display for the S7. I mean, this thing is an OLED panel. It's very sharp. I mean, look at the text. It's just super sharp here, even in 2018. So getting this device in terms of clarity and sharpness with the panel, it's going to be great on the whole. And you can also tweak the resolution of this display. So let me come out of here and let's go into settings and let's go into display. And let's zoom in just a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. Under screen mode here, if we go to screen mode, you do have adaptive display, AMOLED cinema, photo, and basic mode. You can change the color balance as well as your screen resolution to WQHD, 1920 by 1080 or 720p. That was a update in the nougat version. So this display on the whole, it's OLED, so definitely has very deep blacks. It has very inky colors, and it gets very bright. However, it's not as bright as the newer Samsung S8 panels. It's still going to be beating the pants off a lot of smartphones that are, even more money than this smartphone now. I think I've seen these for around $250, $300 now. They might be a little more depending on where you get them, but display, definitely still a win here. I would say the only thing that improves a lot on the newer Samsung displays is brightness. They're just a lot brighter than the S7 and S7 Edge. Let's talk about that software a little bit. I know that's one thing you might be thinking about when getting this device. Now, if you're looking just in the settings, the nougat update was actually to the S7 before the S8 was even out, I believe it was. And this device has basically S8 level software when it comes to how it performs, how it looks. It's got the same look and feel as the S8. Now, one thing it doesn't have though as the S8 is it doesn't have, the infinity wallpapers, and some of the icons are just slightly different from the Samsung Galaxy S8, but on the whole, the experience is almost identical to Samsung Galaxy S8, except for you don't have your edge panels. Again, infinity wallpapers, a few things are slightly tweaked, but the experience, most people just using these phones day to day wouldn't be able to see much of a difference. Now, software in terms of its performance, when you first boot up the S7, it does take some time to get warmed up. It's a little slow and a little laggy when it first starts up. But once you get going, once you get your updates done on the phone, like if you have Play Store apps updating in the background, it could get a little bit laggy from time to time. But day to day, just performance, it's pretty fast. Now, I think the, stutters that happen from time to time aren't that cool. It does have those from time to time, but, I would say on the whole, at 100% right now, the S7 probably performs great 95% of the time. So it's good enough to definitely recommend it in terms of software. Now, updates is a little bit annoying though with this phone, because if I go to settings here and I go down to about, I still haven't had the Android 8.0 update, and that's pretty not cool for, this device being as old as it is. And even 7.1.1 never came to this phone. So that's a little bit disappointment. We all know Samsung doesn't really go fast when it comes to updating their devices. But if I was to say, is it worth it in software? I think if you're going to keep this device maybe 1 or 2 more years, if you buy it now, it should be fine. But I wouldn't buy this and try to go 5 years. Software updates are probably going to be annoying if you try to keep this phone for 4 to 5 years. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about the performance aspect of this device. Now, I think I did a couple of speed tests with this phone, and it performed and held its own pretty well when it comes to performance. And you can see very fast though. It's not a slow phone whatsoever. And this was one of the first phones with the dual pixel AF camera. We'll talk about that a little bit later in this video, but you've seen there's just a slight delay sometimes when you do go home, just very slight. Like, it's really hard to see. It's very slight, but it just doesn't look absolutely smooth all the time when you're coming home. And you can see it just a little bit choppy when going through the application. So I wouldn't say this is the best performer. I would definitely slap Nova Launcher on this device. And one thing I don't like about this is when you're running it heavy and you're really doing a lot of performance-based stuff, the phone definitely gets hot. That was one of the worst things about the S7 for me. The phone warmed up too much. It got uncomfortably warm. I had to have a case on it all the time because it was getting too hot. So heat management wasn't the best on this device, especially on the Snapdragon series that I have here, the 821. It wasn't the best in heat management. Now, you might have seen the Exynos version be faster. I haven't played with that one personally, but for Snapdragon, it does heat up a little bit too much on the S7 for me. Now, in terms of storage, 32 gigabytes. So this phone didn't give me the 64 gig that the S8 did, the 64 gig, but it definitely had enough. Applications, I'm not going to download 300 applications, but if you're that person, this phone might not have enough storage for you. However, you can expand the storage, which is kind of something you don't see on all smartphones. You can just take that SD card up at the top or that SD card slot and just put one in up to 256 gigs. So in terms of photos and videos, no issues with storage. The storage speed itself, not the fastest I've seen. I think Apple phones are a little faster when it comes to file transfer, but it's faster than, cheap phones. It's still a flagship level performer. It's just slightly slower than some of the iPhones out there, I think, in file transfer speed. So what about that camera on the S7? That's a 12 megapixel dual AF shooter there that shoots it up to 4K. Now, it won't do 4K at 60, but it will do 4K at 30. And let me tell you, this is still one of the best bang for buck phones I think you can get for the camera. What I mean by that is if you can find this secondhand, you are getting one fantastic camera here in the S7. Now, yeah, Samsung phones tend to be a little soft around the edges when it comes to photography, but at the same time, they're very vibrant, beautiful photos, and the dual pixel AF is on point when it comes to that focusing speed. So you can see very sharp details here for the S7, and you can use selective focus and get that little blur in the background, so the depth of field. So it's a really nice camera to have. It's got the updated software that makes it look very S8-like on this device. You can go ahead and now flip to the front to take a photo or whatever you want to do, selfie mode, stuff like that. Great camera on the S7. I loved it, and I actually still use this from time to time when I want a portable, pocketable camera on the S7. So yeah, if you guys are going to buy this in 2018 and you're thinking about, is the camera going to be okay? The rear camera is going to be fine. The front camera is spotty. I wouldn't say the best on the front camera, but the rear camera is definitely going to be pretty fantastic for you. And with this size of a phone, shooting with this camera feels very enjoyable because I always like when a phone is smaller for photography. It gives you more of that point and shoot feel on a smartphone rather than that large, phablet feel. So what about the audio? So you see right there, that is the speaker grill of the S7. That's it. You can cover that thing up pretty easy. There's a microphone hole right there. On the whole, it definitely sounds pretty good. I just think it was a little bit, it was hard to hear sometimes because of the waterproof they did in here, the IP68, which is a nice benefit to this phone as well. It made it where it kind of sounded like the audio was drowned out or something like that. It just didn't sound very good. So this is not my recommendation for the best audio phone, but use headphones on this device, it will definitely enhance the experience. Let's go ahead and take a look at one of my latest videos right here, getting a little YouTube TV action. Let's go ahead and take a look at one of my videos on the Nick Ackerman channel. And let's hit in here. And let's just click a video here to see how that audio does sound on this device. So let's go to my latest video, iPhone 10 bulletproof cases. Let's find out what they're about in this video. Coming up, let's go. So I'm not sure if you could hear it or not, but very easy to cover that thing. It's loud. It's loud, don't get me wrong, but it definitely doesn't have the nicest, bassiest, crispy sound. It's an average speaker that gets very loud. That's how I would put it for the S7. So what about the battery life on this device? You can see I'm holding at 55% right now. Battery life is actually surprisingly good on the S7. Even the smaller one had like a 3000 milliamp hour battery. And you know, when you first get it, you know, brand new, it might be a little bit spotty, but it definitely works in, and over time it gets more efficient. So the battery life easily got me through a day. I would say it's pretty much about the same as something like an iPhone 8 in my use case. Now, if you do some things in Android, like inefficient apps, it can mess up the battery life. So you might want to make sure that you're downloading good apps from, you know, reputable developers to make sure that you're not having battery issues, because some apps can just drain the crap out of your battery. But once it gets broken in and you start getting all your apps on here and you start using it day to day, it starts to recognize how you're using the phone. It starts to get better over time, and you got all these battery saving modes. So this is a phone I would go out and not feel like I'm gonna be on 0% battery by the end of the day. I could easily get through the day with the S7. So what about phone calls? Is this a recommendation in 2018 for phone calls? Well, easily, yeah. Any phone basically can do that job here in 2018. But if you want to know how it actually sounds, it's got HD voice, so it sounded pretty good. I didn't have no issues with it. Drop calls were definitely not happening at all in my use cases with the Samsung Galaxy S7. So really good phone call. And I always like the feature where you can just swipe over to the right to go ahead and call people, or swipe to the left to message people. So it's a good phone for, you know, phone calling. So we have arrived at the conclusion of the Samsung Galaxy S7. Should you buy this thing in 2018? Well, the prices matter a lot here. I mean, you get a lot of cool features, but it depends on the price point. Like if you get this thing for like $250 or $300 on Swappa or somewhere, it's definitely a definite recommend. This thing is smoking a lot of cheap phones these days. You get a great camera on the rear. This is one of the biggest points for me that I would pick this up on used secondhand, is that camera. It's dual pixel AF, 12 megapixel 4K shooter, and it looks amazing. I mean, you could take some amazing videos and photos with this camera. I mean, it's not the best phone camera probably ever, but it's one of the phone cameras that started that trend of making phone cameras really, really good. So I would definitely recommend this one for that. That heart rate sensor, I don't use it that much. If you're in the health and stuff like that, you probably will. Fingerprint scanner on the front, very accurate. Didn't have a problem with that too much. The screen has been fantastic. Battery life is good. You have a ton of features. You don't have time to go over all of them here. One-handed modes on this phone, even though it's not that big of a phone. You do have that. It's not working right now. But double click to launch the camera and you're good to go. There's just so much going on with the S7. When it came out, it was like $700-800. So yes, if you can find it at a good deal, it's a go for 2018. I recommend it. If you found this video helpful, enjoyable, do me a favor, click that like button for me. And if you're new here, consider subscribing for more. If you do have an S7, please share down below in the comments with the community what you think of it. If you bought it like within the past 6 months or even a year, let them know so that people can see if this thing is worth it for them. They like to hear other people's thoughts and opinions and takes other than just mine. And yeah, I'll catch you all on the next one. Be sure to be well. Nick here, and peace.